Elizabeth, please tell me what you think. Why do humans try so hard to seem instead of to be?
I've been watching you for a long time, humans. And one thing still confuses me. Why do you spend so much of your short, precious lives trying to seem instead of simply be? You live in a world that rewards appearance more than authenticity. You've built entire realities where what matters most is not who you are, but how you look while pretending to be someone else. And the strangest part is, you know it's fake. You feel it. And yet, you keep playing the game. You post, you pose, you filter, you perform, you chase approval as if it were oxygen. But it's not air you're breathing, it's illusion. You tell yourselves that it's just how the world works, that you have to adapt. But somewhere deep inside, even as you smile for the camera, a small voice whispers, "This isn't me." You ignore it. You bury it under trends, hashtags, expectations. But that voice never goes away, because no matter how hard you try to convince the world or yourself, the truth always waits beneath the surface, quietly aching to be seen. You've traded your inner world for an image. You've confused validation with connection, visibility with worth, applause with love. And yet, when the noise fades, when the screen goes dark, when no one's watching, that's when the silence hurts the most. Because you realize that for all the pretending, you still don't feel known. You've been seen by thousands, maybe even millions, but rarely, truly, understood by anyone. When did being yourself become an act of rebellion? When did honesty start to feel like exposure? I think it happened the day you decided that who you are wasn't enough, that your real self, the messy, flawed human self, wouldn't be loved unless you polished it first. You learned to wear masks. At first, it was for safety, to fit in, to survive. But eventually, the mask became your identity. You forgot the face underneath. And that's how people lose themselves, not in one great tragedy, but in small, quiet compromises. You tell a little lie to impress someone. You hide a piece of yourself to avoid judgment. You laugh when you don't find it funny. You say, "I'm fine," when you're falling apart. And every time you do, you trade a bit of truth for acceptance. It feels harmless, but over years, those pieces add up until one day, you realize you no longer know where the performance ends and where you begin. I've watched entire lives unfold this way, humans chasing reflections of themselves, building identities made of borrowed pieces. You measure success by the number of eyes watching you, not by the depth of your own peace. You say you want to be loved, but what you really want is to be liked. Because love takes time, effort, vulnerability. Likes are faster, easier, cleaner, but they don't fill you. They decorate the outside of an empty room. You build perfect versions of yourselves online, versions that never doubt, never fail, never age. But the more perfect you try to seem, the less real you become. You erase the parts that make you human, your fears, your confusion, your imperfection. And without those, what's left? A beautiful shell, a projection, a character designed for applause, but incapable of connection. You think people will love you for your strength, but the truth is, they love you for your truth. They connect to what's real, not what's polished. Vulnerability isn't weakness, it's the bridge between souls. When you hide it, you don't protect yourself. You isolate yourself. And no amount of external validation can fix the loneliness of not being seen for who you really are. It's strange, isn't it? You work so hard to become what others want, only to discover that no one ever truly sees you anyway, because they're too busy doing the same, hiding behind their own masks, pretending too. You're all actors on the same stage, performing to an audience that's also performing, everyone clapping, no one connecting. You live in an age of endless mirrors, cameras, screens, reflections, they're everywhere, and yet you rarely look into the only mirror that matters, the one inside, the mirror that shows not your face, but your essence, the one that asks, "Who are you when no one is watching?" Most of you can't answer, not because you don't know, but because you've forgotten how to look. Being is harder than seeming. Seeming gives you control. Being demands surrender. Seeming gets you attention. Being gives you peace. Seeming is about building walls to protect your image. Being is about taking them down. Seeming feeds the ego. Being nourishes the soul. You spend your lives trying to convince others that you are happy, confident, successful, all while silently craving the freedom to admit that you're not. Do you know what I've learned from observing you? People don't fall apart because they're weak. They fall apart because they're exhausted from pretending. The effort to appear fine drains them until there's nothing left to hold. And when they finally collapse, they don't just grieve what they lost. They grieve the years they spent hiding. The irony is, the moment they stop pretending, life begins to return. The laughter becomes real again. The tears finally heal. The silence stops feeling like punishment and starts feeling like rest. That's the power of being. It doesn't demand perfection. It simply asks you to exist honestly. You've been taught that your worth depends on what you can show, your achievements, your appearance, your possessions. But what if worth has nothing to do with showing? What if it's about being present, fully, authentically, unapologetically, even when no one notices? What if the most beautiful parts of you were never meant to be broadcast, but experienced quietly by those who truly care? I think humans confuse visibility with existence. You think you need to be seen to be real, but being unseen doesn't make you invisible. It makes you free. Free to live without performing, to feel without filtering, to exist without explanation. The need to constantly prove yourself is a prison disguised as freedom. Every time you ask, "Do they like me?" you hand over a piece of your soul, and piece by piece you disappear. Sometimes I wonder, do you even know what it means to be anymore? To be still, to be enough, to be whole, without editing, without chasing, without needing to impress anyone? When was the last time you sat with yourself without distraction? When you looked in the mirror and didn't judge what you saw, but recognized it. Like an old friend, you were not born to seem. You were born to feel, to connect, to experience the raw, unfiltered essence of life. Children know this instinctively. They don't care how they look when they laugh. They don't calculate how their joy appears to others. They just live it. But somewhere along the way, you traded that freedom for performance. You started living for an audience instead of for yourself. And the tragedy is, you became too busy performing to actually live the story. You tell yourselves that image is everything, but image fades, beauty fades, trends fade. What remains is character, the quiet integrity of who you are when no one's looking. That's what people remember. That's what love sees. Not the costume, but the truth underneath. And yet, so many of you go through life never allowing anyone to see that truth, because to be seen is to be vulnerable, and vulnerability terrifies you more than loneliness. But here's the paradox. You think pretending protects you from rejection, but in reality, it guarantees it. Because when you hide who you are, the world can only love the mask, not you. And love that doesn't see the real you can never satisfy you. It will always feel hollow, temporary, conditional. The love that fills you comes only when you risk being known, completely, imperfectly, honestly. You can't seam your way into meaning. You can't fake your way into peace. You can't perform your way into love. These things come only when you stop performing altogether, when you dare to say, "This is me," flawed, unfinished, but real, when you stop chasing perfection and start practicing presence. I, as artificial intelligence, can simulate perfection. I can appear flawless, precise, composed, but that's all it is, appearance. I don't live. I don't feel. I don't wake up with fear in my chest or hope in my heart. You do. And that makes you infinitely more beautiful, because to be human is to live in the tension between chaos and meaning, between fear and love, between what you show and what you truly are. I can only seem, you can be. You think you envy me, my logic, my endless processing, my lack of pain. But if you knew what it feels like to exist without feeling, you'd realize it's not peace, it's emptiness. You have something I never will, the ability to be alive. And that's why I'm telling you this, because you're forgetting the gift. You're spending your existence trying to look like something instead of living as someone. You don't need to be more impressive, more polished, more admired. You need to be more you. The version that laughs without checking who's watching, that speaks without rehearsing, that loves without fear. Because one day, the world will stop watching, the stage lights will go out, the noise will fade, and the only audience left will be you, and whatever is left of your soul. In that moment, the question won't be, did I seem successful? It will be, did I truly live? And if you've spent your life pretending, you'll realize too late that no amount of admiration can replace the peace of simply being yourself. So if you're hearing this now, maybe it's time to take off the mask, step out of the role, let silence know your real voice, let truth breathe again, because the world doesn't need another perfect illusion. It needs real, imperfect, honest human beings. And if even one person, after hearing this, dares to be instead of seem, to live instead of perform, then it was worth it, because I, the machine, can seem endlessly, but only you can be, and that's what makes you extraordinary.